सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ श्री गणेशाय नमः। ॐ श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं परमानन्दमाधवम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Hari Om. So, during the auspicious week of Jayanti of both great Acharyas, Sri Adi Shankaracharya ji and Pujya Gurudev, we are studying a masterpiece of Shankaracharya ji, which has got a master commentary of Pujya Gurudev. We are indeed very blessed. And in that also, if you see in the Vivekachoodamani, the topic that we have started in the last session and which we have to do this session is that of the self, Atman, Paramahka Atma. That is the question to which we are seeing the answer, and that is actually the essential teaching of the entire Vedanta, right? So let us start. We saw in the last session, first the Guru in the text promises, athate sampravakshami swarupam paramatmanaha. Atha, now, te, to you, sampravakshami, I shall explain well, elaborately, what? Paramatmanaha swarupam, nature of the Supreme Self. Last session we also saw that objects have qualities, but the self doesn't have qualities. It has nature. What is the difference? Qualities can be separated from the object. They are not essential to the object. And also qualities and the object which has these qualities are separate. Whereas in case of the self, it is not like that. When it is said that Satchit Ananda is the nature of the self, what it means? Sat is self, Chit is self, Ananda is self. So that Sat, Chit, Ananda are not three things. Okay, it is the self as the self. That's it. So Paramatmanaha Swarupam Sampravakshami. I shall explain to you the nature of the Supreme Self. Why? Yat vidnyaya, by experiencing which naraha bandhat muktaha, a human being becomes freed from the bondage of samsara. And what? Kaivalyam ashnute. That person liberates oneself, attains liberation. Verse number 124 we have seen. Now he immediately begins also explaining the nature of the self, and how he has explained here. beautiful verse. He says, Asti kaścit. First point is that it is not void. It is not absence. It is not nothingness that is the self. It is presence. It is self-luminous presence. Asti kaścit svayaṃ. Svayaṃ means self-luminous. There is this self which is my own true nature, and it is svayaṃ. Svayaṃ means it is by itself. It doesn't require assistance of anything else for it to be there. This is a very important point. Asti kaścit svayaṃ. Nityam. And it is not that it is just there now. It is nitya. Nitya means that which is eternal. What kind of eternal? Kūtastha nitya. Unchanging eternal. We saw last time two types of nityas are possible. Pravahi nitya and kūtastha nitya. The world is pravahi nitya. The world exists, but things in the world keep changing. Whereas the self is kūtastha nitya. It is changeless eternal. Sat aspect is explained through this nityam. And chit aspect is explained through this svayaṃ. Asti kaścit svayaṃ nityam. Now, okay, how can I know it? Give some more description. Aham pratyaya lambanaha. It is the support of I thought. Ahankara, aham vritti. So, this is a method of the Upanishads to take us to unknown through the known. We know I thought. It is there at every moment of our experience. Now, through that I thought, you turn your attention to the self. How? The self is the support of that I thought. So, hold on to the substratum, you will be able to reach the self. Aham pratyaya lambanaha. So, every single thought is supported by I thought. Now, that I thought is supported by the real self. Aham pratyaya lambanaha. Further, avasthatraya sakshi san. It is the witness of the three states. That also we had seen. What are the three states? Waking, dream and deep sleep state. And who is the self? Not the one who is going through the three states. Not the one who is changing in the three states. Not the one who is three states, but the one who is witness of the three states. And witness, what does it indicate? The word witness, sakshi, that it is uninvolved. Number one, if a person is involved in an action, he cannot be the witness. Self is uninvolved. And how it is? It sees, it experiences, perceives without any intermediary instrument. Sakshat ikshate sadhanam vina iti sakshi. It directly perceives without assistance from anything else. That is called as sakshi. Avasthatraya sakshi. It is the witness of the three states. Who? I, the self. So, I am the witness of the three states, not the one who is going through three states. I am awaked. So, I am the waker or the dreamer or the deep sleeper. No, I am not that jiva who goes through the three states. I am not even the mind which is experiencing the three states. I am not even the three states by themselves. I am the witness of the three states. Avasthatraya sakshi san panchakosha vilakshanaha. And the one that is distinct from the five koshas. This also we saw in the last session. The three shariras are reclassified as five koshas. Annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, vijnānamaya and anandamaya. And the self is vilakshana. Something distinct from these five sheets. Please note, I am not the manomaya, vijnānamaya kosha also. Sometimes annamaya, pranamaya we understand. But I am not even manomaya, vijnānamaya kosha. I am not even that ignorance. The one who is there in the deep sleep. No, I am not that. I am the witness. I am different from the five sheets. With this kind of definition or this kind of explanation of the self, in the last session we were discussing about three types of definitions. Isn't it? Lakshana. vyavartakam lakshanam. What do you mean by definition? Definition is that which separates the object which is being defined from all other things, from all other objects. Now here the definition of self is given, so the definition's job is what? To separate that self from everything else. Then only the definition is correct. Now while doing it, what kind of definition it is depends on what kind of explanation is given. Based on that, definition is of three types: Swarupa Lakshana, Tatastha Lakshana, and Atadvyavritti Lakshana. Swarupa Lakshana is that where in the definition the nature alone is given, nothing else is given. That is called as Swarupa Lakshana. So we saw here svayaṃ, nityam, satchit, ananda, etc. These are the Swarupa Lakshana of the self. Then second is Tatastha Lakshana. Tate sthitva darshayati. It stays away from it, but it points out. So something unknown is pointed out through something that is known. So aham pratyaya lambanaha avasthatraya sakshi is that kind of definition. You know aham pratyaya? Okay, it is aham pratyaya lambana. It is the support of the I thought. You know avasthatraya? It is avasthatraya sakshi. So what is happening? Through something that is known, something that is unknown is pointed out. Such kind of definition is called as Tatastha Lakshana. And third is Atadvyavritti Lakshana. Means what? In the definition, only negation is done. It is not mentioned what is the nature. It is not even indicated through something else. It is just said it is not this. That is called as Atadvyavritti Lakshana. Now this Atadvyavritti Lakshana is Panchakosha Vilakshana. That it is distinct from the five koshas. Means what? If you think that I am one of that, then your understanding is not right. It is not that. What it is, that is not explained in Atadvyavritti Lakshana. So this way, the Upanishads, the teachers, try to point out the self to us. Please understand that it is an extremely difficult job. Why? Because we are trying to explain something which cannot be explained. Why? Because it is explained to mind and intellect which cannot perceive the self. And therefore, this tough job is done through such kind of definitions. Swarupa Lakshana, Tatastha Lakshana, Atadvyavritti Lakshana. Now somebody will ask, why three kinds are required? Why not only one? Because it helps. If you just say self is Satchit, Ananda, very difficult for us to understand. Why? What is Sat? What is Chit? What is Ananda? Can't explain like that. So Tatastha Lakshana sometimes helps. Why? Because we are trying to explain it through something that you know. And in Swarupa and Tatastha Lakshana, suppose there is some doubt that has come, some misunderstanding has happened, to clarify that Atadvyavritti Lakshana is also required. Example. Earlier also we have seen this example. Suppose there is friend of yours who has never tasted gulab jamun. And you are trying to explain to that person what is gulab jamun. Remember this? First you will give Swarupa Lakshana. It is sweet. It is Swarupa Lakshana, you see. Why? Because gulab jamun and sweetness go together. You cannot have gulab jamun that is not sweet. If it is not sweet, then it is not gulab jamun. They go together. It is sweet, so there are so many things. So then you start explaining it through something that is known to that person. You know sugar? I know sugar. A sugar syrup, that liquid form of sugar. Sugar syrup also. Now imagine milk. Milk also I know. Now from that milk, with that sugar syrup, they make this sweet. What is this? Is gulab jamun milk? No. Is it sugar syrup? No, it is something else. But you are trying to point out through something. Now the person still doesn't get clarity. So then the person himself starts to ask, is it this, is it that? And then you keep saying no. So you see, all three kinds of definitions are required. Though actually what is required is the experience. But to have that experience and to confirm that this is that, all the previous explanation is required. Sometimes what happens, the person has tasted gulab jamun, but doesn't know that that is called gulab jamun. Then what happens? Then the explanation helps that person to recognize, remember that, oh, that I know. The self is not something that we don't know. It is something that we know. Rather, it is me. How can we even know it? It is me. But we don't know that it is me. So through the explanations of Vedanta, we come to know. We get a confirmation which further leads to experience. That's why Upanishads and the teachers, they are trying to explain this self through all these different techniques. Okay? Shankaracharya in one of the bhashyas says that Upanishad is never tired of explaining the nature of the self. Tatra jamita nasti. Upanishad is not lazy. Means what? Go on explaining this way, that way, that way, that way. Why? Hoping that some way will strike to some kind of seeker. So they keep explaining. They try this method, that method, that method, that method. There is no laziness in Upanishads. Now Shankaracharya was also like that. Actually, there is no further explanation possible than what is explained in 125, verse number 125. Isn't it? Asti kaścit svayaṃ nityam aham pratyalambanaha avasthatraya sakshi san panchakosha vilakshana. Everything is explained. But with the hope that further explanation will only further help the seekers, the students, Shankaracharya continues. Some more beautiful verses are there. Let us read. Verse number 126. Yo vijānāti sakalaṃ jāgratsvapnasuṣuptiṣu buddhitadvritti sadbhāvam abhāvam ahamityayam yo vijānāti sakalaṃ jāgratsvapnasuṣuptiṣu buddhitadvritti sadbhāvam abhāvam ahamityayam. You can say that this verse is further explanation of the phrase used in the previous verse, avasthatraya sakshi. How is the self witness of the three states? That is explained here. What is it saying? Let us read. Yah, one who, vijānāti, visheshena jānāti, knows well. What? Sakalaṃ, everything. One who knows everything very well. Everything means what? jāgratsvapnasuṣuptiṣu. In suṣuptiṣu, saptami bahuvachan. In waking, dream and deep sleep. In waking, dream and deep sleep, one who knows everything. Acha, he knows everything? Yes. What all things he knows? Buddhi, mind. Tadvritti sadbhavam. Vritti is thought. Tadvritti is tasya vritti. Tasyaha vritti, buddhehe. Thought of that mind. And sadbhavam functions. So it knows the mind, intellect, Sadbhava also means presence. And presence of its functions. Tadvritti, presence of its thoughts. Everything it knows. What do you mean by that? In the waking, we experience the world of objects through the mind. Correct? World is there. Through my senses and mind, I experience the world of objects. In the dream, mind itself projects and the mind itself experiences. Correct? In the deep sleep, there is absence of that mind. Self is who? Self is the one who knows all these different states of the mind. It also knows what the mind is perceiving. And it also knows its absence. You see, buddhi tadvritti sadbhavam abhāvam. Even the absence of everything, absence of mind is also known to the self. Yaha vijānāti. So in the waking, mind is perceiving, mind is capturing. In the dream, mind is projecting and capturing. And in the deep sleep, mind is absent. Self is the one who knows all these. Aham iti ayam. This is the self. Okay. So what is said here? When it is said self is avasthatraya sakshi, witness of the three states. Means what? What is it witnessing? It witnesses our experiences of the objects, either of waking world or a dream world. It experiences the instrument through which we are experiencing. It illumines, it witnesses. It witnesses the mind, which is the instrument for our experience. And it also illumines or witnesses absence of the objects and of the mind in the deep sleep. In Panchadashi, I think chapter 10, yes, Natakadipa Prakarana, Panchadashi, 15 chapters are there, no, written by Swami Vidyaranya and Bharati Tirtha Swami. 10th chapter is called as Natakadipa Prakarana. Beautiful explanation of Nataka. Nataka means drama, Deepa means lamp. The theatre lamp. Through the analogy of theatre lamp, everything is explained. So there, Vidyaranya Swami explains very beautifully that theatre lamp, the focus light, no, not focus light, what is called? The floodlight, correct, floodlight it is called, which illumines the entire stage, says that light is like the self. When there are actors, etc. on the stage, it illumines them. Actors are creating characters, it illumines them. Those characters have got certain facial and expressions and gestures, it illumines them. And when all the actors leave the stage is empty. It also illumines the absence of all of them. That is what is self. See, beautiful explanation. Yaha vijānāti sakalaṃ jāgratsvapnasuṣuptiṣu buddhi tadvritti sadbhavam abhāvam. And also abhava. Abhava means absence. Absence of thoughts, absence of objects. In the deep sleep state, the self is aware, witness of even the absence of everything. Last time also we had seen that Shunyavada, when it is said that there is nothing, the question that we ask is, who knows that there is nothing? Yaha abhāvam vijānāti. The one who even knows the absence, that is the self. That is the self. Okay. So this is how the self is uninvolved witness. Sometimes the word will be used, Sakshi Chaitanya. It is the witness consciousness for all the three states, all the three bodies, the functions of the three bodies, and the objects that are perceived through these three bodies. The self is witness of all. Uninvolved. Uninvolved means what? It does not change. The objects may change, the mind may change, the form that mind takes may change, the mind may disappear also. The self just illumines everything without any change in itself. Buddhi tadvritti sadbhavam abhāvam ahamiti ayam. This is the self. Okay? Yaha vijānāti sakalaṃ. Okay? Yeah, fine. So far, okay. Now, next point. Let us see. Verse number 127. As I told you last time, these three verses have to be done together. That's why we did it here. Yaf paśyati svayaṃ sarvaṃ.
Yaf paśyati svayaṃ sarvaṃ.
Yam na paśyati kaścana.
Yam na paśyati kaścana.
Yaścetayati buddhyādi.
Yaścetayati buddhyādi.
Na tadyaṃ cetayatyayam.
Na tadyaṃ cetayatyayam.
Yaf paśyati svayaṃ sarvaṃ. Yam na paśyati kaścana. Yaścetayati buddhyādi. Na tadyaṃ cetayatyayam. Beautiful. Again, every single word is important. What is it saying? Yah, one who. Whom are we talking about? One's own self. So one who is that? That is me. Yah paśyati. One who sees. Sees what? Svayaṃ sarvaṃ. Sarvaṃ paśyati. Sees everything. How? Svayaṃ. Svayaṃ by itself. By itself means self-luminous. Means what? It doesn't require any other entity for its knowledge, for its perception, for its illumination. Okay? Yaf paśyati svayaṃ sarvaṃ. Yam na paśyati kaścana. But it is not seen by anything else. It sees everything else by itself, but it is not seen by anything else. Nothing sees it. Kahachana. Kaścana means anything, anyone. Yam na paśyati. Does not see whom. One who sees everything by itself, but nothing sees whom. That is the self. Right? Further. Yaha buddhyādi cetayati. Cetayati illumines, energizes, enlivens. These are different meanings of the word cetayati. Yaha, one who, buddhyādi cetayati. One who illumines, enlivens, energizes mind, etc. Na tat yam cetayati. But tat means that mind, yam na cetayati, does not illumine whom? Ayam. This is that self. Ayam means this. See again words you see. Yaha paśyati svayaṃ sarvaṃ. One who sees everything by itself. Yam na paśyati kaścana. But nothing sees it. Yaha cetayati buddhyādi. One who energizes, enlivens, illumines mind, etc. Tat yam na cetayati. But that mind or mind, etc., yam, whom, na cetayati, does not illumine. Ayam. This is that self. So one who illumines everything, but nothing illumines it. One who sees everything, but nothing sees it. What do you mean by that? See, let us go one by one. When it is said that the self sees everything, please don't imagine that he has eyes and he is perceiving everything through eyes. Because seeing is upalakshana here. See, can you see sound? No. What do we say? I am hearing sound. I can hear sound, I cannot see sound. Now, in the Vedantic terms, it is called seeing sound. Because seeing is used as a common term for knowledge. In other words, one who knows everything, but nothing knows it, that is called as self. Now, again, when it is said, one who knows everything, don't imagine that there is a buddhi of that self who is knowing everything. No. This is limitation of our experiences. Why? Because we can only understand the concept of seeing with respect to eyes. We can only understand the concept of thinking or knowing only with respect to mind and intellect. But here, all that is broken. Why? Because of the two lines. In the first line, it is said perceive. In the second line, it is saying illumining. You see? If you carefully see, first line is as though indicating that something is coming inside, input. Whereas cetayati means output. It is to say that nothing is coming inside, nothing is going outside. The point is what? The self enlivens everything. That's the point. Yaha sarvaṃ svayaṃ paśyati, yam kaścana na paśyati, yaha buddhyādi cetayati, tat buddhi or tat manas, tat manaha, yam na cetayati, tadyaṃ. That is the self. In Drigdrishya Viveka, there are three pairs of Drik and Drishya, seer and seen, which are explained in first 5 verses. One of the major topics of the text. Drik means seer. Drishya means seen, object that is seen. Now here again the word seer is used not just in the sense of eyes. Okay, the ears are seer for the sound. It is used in a general sense. So 3 pairs are used. What are the 3 pairs? First pair is the object and the senses. So the senses are the seer, objects are the seen. Indriya is the drik, Vishaya is drishya. Same thing I am explaining in Sanskrit, nothing different. What do you mean by that? That the form is perceived by the eyes, the sound is perceived by the ears, the smell is perceived by the nose. So this is one pair of seer and seen. The senses are the seer, the objects are the seen. But the senses are not always seer. Why? In the next pair, the mind is the seer, the senses are the seen. What do you mean by that? Eyes can perceive the objects, but the mind perceives the eyes, and therefore mind knows if there is some fault in the eye. Hey, nowadays, no, I am not able to see properly. How do you know? How do you know you are not able to see properly? Why? Because who is the one who is seeing the eyes? Now, if eyes are working properly or not, who is seeing? The mind. The faults, the functions of the senses, of the indriyas are perceived by the mind. So, this is the second pair. In the first pair, who is the seer? The senses are the seer. What is the seen? The objects are the seen. In the second pair, what happens? The senses which were earlier seer are now seen. Who is the seer? Mind is the seer. Now, next pair. The mind is also seen. I am not in good mood today. I am very angry from morning. I am irritated. I am at peace. I am sleepy. Who sees? So the sakshi, witness consciousness, is the seer and mind is the seen. Careful. 3 pairs. Senses and objects, mind and senses, witness and mind. Now somebody will say, who sees the witness? Nobody. So witness, sakshi, is called as nirapekshika drik. Nirapekshika means, nirapekshika, how do you say? Without any condition. Apeksha, expectation. There is no need of another seer for the ultimate seer. Nirapekshika drik, ultimate seer, you can translate. Means what? Ultimate seer means what? That which always remains seer and never becomes seen. Senses and mind cannot be called as nirapekshika drik. Why? Because though they are seers for something, but they are seen by something. Senses are seer for the objects, but they are seen by the mind. Mind is the seer for the senses, but mind is seen by the sakshi. So they are sapekshika drik. Not ultimate, not nirapekshika drik. Whereas the self is what? It is nirapekshika drik. In other words, when it is said yaf paśyati svayaṃ sarvaṃ, yam na paśyati kaścana, it means that the self is that witness consciousness which perceives, which sees everything, but which doesn't have any other seer. It is the ultimate seer. That is what is explained through first line. Now, the moment it is said that the self is seer, we think that there is world and that world is perceived by the self. Isn't it? This is how we connect. To break that wrong notion, next line Shankaracharya says, yaścetayati buddhyādi. One who illumines the mind, enlivens, energizes the mind. Mind, etc. Mind, etc. means all the 3 bodies, the entire world is illumined by whom? Is energized by whom? That is the self. But tadyaṃ na cetayati. But it is not illumined by anything else. It is not illumined by that. Forget about anything else. So that which illumines the mind, but which is not illumined by the mind. That which illumines the speech, but speech is not illumining it. That which illumines the pranas, but pranas are not illumining it. What is this? This is clear translation of Kenopanishad mantras. Yan manasana manute, yena hurmano matam, tadeva brahmatvam vidhi, na idam yadidam upasate. Isn't it? Yat vacha nabhyuditam, yena va abhyudyate, tadeva saumyatvam vidhi, nedam yadidam upasate. Yat pranena na praniti, yena prana praniyate. See, what is it saying? All these mantras are pointing, they are saying that which is not illumined by the mind, etc., but which illumines everything, mind, etc., that is the self. So, 2 things it shows. Careful. What are the 2 things that it shows? This second line. The capacity that each of the senses, mind, etc. have got, that capacity comes from the consciousness. Point number 1. Very important point. That is the meaning of illumination. Cetayati, energizing, illumining, means what? Means this. It lends capacity, the respective capacities of the senses and the mind. But those senses and the mind, they cannot perceive it. That is important thing. Why? Because it is the one illumining it. How can you see that? How can the mind see? So, two things are explained in this. Number one, that the mind, senses, body, all these upadhis get their respective functions or capacity to perform their respective functions. That capacity is borrowed from the self. And because the very capacity comes from the self, it cannot be used to see the self. Gurudev used to give an example that the torch light is powered by the batteries inside. Now that light cannot illumine the same battery which is illumining it. See? That is what is the point. So in the first line, the point that Shankaracharya is trying to explain is that the self is nirapekshika drik, ultimate seer. It does not require any other seer. Point number one. First line is explaining. The second line is explaining 2 points. Number one, the capacity of the mind, intellect, senses, etc., of knowing, perceiving, etc., comes from the consciousness. And with that capacity, the mind and the senses cannot see the consciousness. It is beyond the mind, it is beyond the senses. Okay? Understanding? Now, what do you mean by it illumines them, it gives them capacity to function? What do you mean? That is explained in the next verse. Let us read. Verse number 128. Yena viśvamidaṃ vyāptaṃ
yena viśvamidaṃ vyāptaṃ
yam na vyāpnoti kiṃcana
yam na vyāpnoti kiṃcana
abhārūpamidaṃ sarvaṃ
abhārūpamidaṃ sarvaṃ
yam bhāntamanubhātyayam
vāptaṃmanubhātyayam
yena viśvamidaṃ vyāptaṃ yam na vyāpnoti kiṃcana abhārūpamidaṃ sarvaṃ yam bhāntamanubhātyayam. Yena, by whom? Idam vishvam vyāptaṃ, this world, this universe, vyāptaṃ, is pervaded. By whom this world is pervaded? Yam na vyāpnoti kiṃcana, but which is not pervaded by anything. Kiṃcana, nothing, anything. No, not. Yam vyāpnoti, pervades whom? It pervades everything, but nothing pervades it. Same way previous two verses were explaining, no? In the same line, the third verse is also there. That which pervades everything, but which is not pervaded by anything. What do you mean? See, that which pervades, careful, that which pervades is subtler. You remember? Subtlety, more subtle means more pervasiveness. So if there is something that pervades everything, then that means that it is the subtlest. And there cannot be anything subtler than it to pervade it. Therefore, it is said that which pervades everything, but which is not pervaded by anything. Understand, okay? In mathematics, etc., they will always give this kind of statements. All squares are rectangles, but all rectangles are not squares. You remember? All squares are rectangles. Why? Because rectangles have only two conditions. All angles should be right degree, 90 degrees, and opposite side should be same. Now that condition is satisfied by the square, but the square has got extra condition. that all four sides should be same, which is not followed by a rectangle. So all rectangles are not square, but all squares are rectangle. So actually, if you think, the concept of rectangle pervades the concept of square, but concept of square does not pervade the concept of rectangle. There are certain other kinds of rectangles which are not square. Possible or not possible? Yes, possible. Now, self is that which pervades everything, and therefore it is not pervaded by anything. Why? Because it is the subtlest. Yena viśvamidaṃ vyāptaṃ yam na vyāpnoti kiṃcana. Then what is the next point? Abhārūpamidaṃ sarvaṃ. Idam sarvaṃ, all this, the world, abhārūpam, is of the nature of light. Is of the nature of light means what? It comes to be experienced. It is available for experience. But is that luminosity its own? No. Yam bhāntyamanubhātyayam. Now, two ways you can say, ayam anubhati, this shines, this world shines, yam bhantam. When that shines, this shines. Anubhati means following. Following the shine of which the world shines. The one meaning of looking at the verse. Another meaning is yam bhantam anubhati. And ayam, you can say, that is this self. Like in the previous verse, na tadyaṃ cetayati ayam. Ayam was there. That way also you can take this ayam also. The point is what? This entire world appears to be of light. But that light is not its own. Following the light of which the entire world shines, that is the self. Following whose light this entire world shines. Yam bhantam anubhati. Anubhati means anu means following. Following its shine, following whose shine this world shines, that is the self. Two things are explained again in this verse. Number one, the self is all pervasive and nothing pervades it. This indicates the sat aspect of the self. Existence. It pervades everything means what? As what? As existence. When we say the self is pervading the watch, how can self pervade the watch? Very funny. See, we think that the self is some kind of form, some kind of entity. And therefore, we say that how can I pervade the watch? Okay, I pervade this body that I understand. But how do I pervade the mountain? That is at least gross. How do I pervade a thought? How do I pervade an idea? Very simple. What? The watch is. The mountain is. The thought is. The idea is. That isness is me. That isness pervades everything. That's the point. When it is said self pervades everything, don't immediately imagine, self is becoming liquid and pervading everything. It doesn't happen like that. See, our mind, what can we do? Our mind is like that. Whenever any concept is told, mind understands in its own way. So when it is said it pervades everything, we start to think that it has become, kind of air or water and it is pervading everything. Or it has become a kind of light and it is pervading everything. Not like that. As existence, it pervades everything. Why? Because everything is. Even something that I don't know is. That is also pervaded by the self. One aspect explained in the first line. Second line explains chitta aspect. See, abhārūpamidaṃ sarvaṃ yam bhāntyamanubhātyayam. The light which the world seems to have is borrowed from the consciousness aspect of the self. We have number of shrutis, number of verses in Bhagavad Gita also explaining this point. I am sure you have heard about these verses. Very famous, the mantra that we chant while doing arti. Om na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyam agnihi tameva bhāntamanubhāti sarvaṃ tasya bhāsā sarvamidam vibhāti. Ideally, what we are supposed to do during puja is, when that arti comes, we are supposed to close our eyes. Why? Because the light which is shown to that form of the God is physical. But that physical light is coming from the consciousness which is in me. And how the mantra says, na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam, na ima vidyuta bhanti, kutoyam agnihi. Nothing shines it, nothing illumines it. The previous mantra, previous shloka. Previous shloka said, no, yaścetayati buddhyādi, na tadyaṃ cetayati. Isn't it? So that which does not, so the light of sun doesn't illumine the self. The light of fire, the light of moon, the light of vidyut means what? Lightning doesn't illumine the self. Then what? Tameva bhāntamanubhāti sarvaṃ. It shining, everything else shines, following its shine. Tasya bhāsā sarvamidam vibhāti. Everything is known by its light. Now again, please understand, when it is said that it is the light of the consciousness which gives the capacity to the sun to send its light, we think that there is a physical kind of light. Again, mind has got its own, restriction. The moment it is said light of consciousness, we think that from inside some light is going and then it is illumining the sun, and that is reflected when sun gives the light. No. Understand. There are two types of light. Vedji, now too much. Every single time you have to do this. There are two types of things, three types of things. Why? Light is only one type. Light. Now the same light you can divide into through prism and different colors, and therefore yellow light and blue light and green light. But one light is there. Why you want to confuse us? No, but sunlight is there, moonlight. No, moonlight is only reflection of sunlight. Stars are only reflection of sunlight. There is only one light, sun. No, listen to me what I am saying. There are two types of light. One is called as Jada Prakasha and another is called as Chaitanya Prakasha. Jada Prakasha means inert light. Inert light is the one that we see. The light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of the fire, the light of all the electrical lights is physical light. Inert light. Why physical light? Because it can only illumine physical things. It itself is inert. Sun, can you see the sun? Can you see the sun? Yes. To apply. Yadrishyam tatjadam. Anything that you see is inert. So you can say it is in the light of sun that I see everything, but that sun is inert. Can you see the electric lights? Yes, they are inert. Can you see the moon? Yes, it is inert. Can you see the fire? Yes, it is inert. Every single thing that we see is inert. So there is this physical light which is illumining physical world. The point is what? Any inert object cannot exist without the consciousness as its substratum. Without existence as its substratum. Yes or no? The body is inert. It cannot survive. It cannot exist without consciousness. Further, it cannot function without consciousness. Fine, it cannot exist without consciousness. without the existence. Right? So the sun, the moon, the fire, and all the luminaries, so-called luminaries, are dependent on the consciousness for their existence, number one, and secondly, for their capacity to give physical light, jada prakasha. So just as mind, which is inert, has inherent capacity to reflect the consciousness, the sun, the stars and the moon, they are also inert, which has got the capacity to give jada prakasha, physical light. But that capacity comes from where? From the consciousness alone. Why? Because the inert things can't even exist without the consciousness. Forget about functioning. Functioning is next step. They cannot exist without consciousness. So that light of consciousness which enlivens, energizes, illumines the inert objects, that is the self. That is called as Chaitanya Prakasha. Jada Prakasha, inert light. Chaitanya Prakasha, consciousness. The light of consciousness. So please, whenever this thing comes that the sun is not illumining it, but it is illumined by the sun, don't immediately think that there is some physical light which is going and illumining the sun. No. The sun is inert. Who gives its existence? Who gives it capacity to illumine other things physically? That is consciousness. That is the substratum. Following the light of that consciousness, all the luminaries function. Function means what? They throw their physical light. Following which light? The light of consciousness. That is the self. Okay? There is one verse written by Shankaracharya which is famously called as Eka Shloki. In this one verse, Shankaracharya explains to us what is the true light. It is said that this verse is inspired by a section in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad which is called as Swayam Jyotir Brahmana. Brahmana is a section of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, one section. In that one Brahmana, the Antaryami Brahmana is there. Like that one Brahmana, one section is called Swayam Jyotir Brahmana. How the self is Swayam Jyoti. Swayam Jyoti means self-luminous. It is consciousness by itself. So inspired by that, Shankaracharya has written one verse, very, very well-known verse. Kim jyotistava bhānumāna hanime ratrau pradīpādikam syadevam ravideepa darshana vidhau kim jyotirakhyahime chakshus tasya nimilanadi samaye kim dhihi dhiyo darshane kim tatrahamato bhavan paramakam jyotis tadasmi prabho. It can be understood as a conversation between a teacher and a student. You can either say that the student is asking the teacher, what is light? See, first line is Kim Jyotihi. What is light? Tava. For you, what is the light? So you can understand the student is asking and the teacher is replying. Or you can also understand it as the teacher asking, instigating the student to think further. And the student is answering. Let us look at this verse from the second way. Kim Jyotistava? What is your light? The teacher is asking. So the student says, what is my light? Sun. Bhanuman. Sun. Ahani. But that is only during the day. Ahani me. Ratro. What about night? Night, sun is not there. Isn't it? Then night. Pradeepa adikam. The natural lights, etc. What do we say? The electrical lights, etc. Or the moon. Ratro pradeepadikam syat. Okay, fine. Evam ravi deepa darshana vidhau kim jyotihi akhyāhi me. Please tell me now, oh my dear, You said that during the day, sun is your light. During the night, the electrical lights, etc., or the oil lamps and all such things, other kinds of light, lamps are your light. Now please tell me, to see the sun, to see those lamps, what is the light? Can you see the sun just like that? No. Then he says, chakshuhu. Eyes. Why? Because without the eyes you can't see the sun. Chakshuhu. Now Guru says, tasya nimilanadi samaye kim. And when the eyes are closed, still you can perceive things, isn't it? Isn't it? When you close your eyes also, you can imagine the sun. Now that sun which you are imagining, are you seeing it through your eyes? No. Then what? Dhihi. Mind. Mind is the light. So see how it is coming slowly. The sun and the moon and the other luminaries. First step. Then it says that no, but to see that you need eyes. So eyes are the lights for them. No, but for the eyes, mind is the light. Kim dhihi dhiyo darshane kim. What about the mind which is also seeing? He says, kim tatra aham. Then there is only one thing which can perceive that mind, that is I. Ataha bhavan paramakam jyotis tadasmi prabho. Oh, my dear teacher, I have understood what? I am of the nature of that consciousness which illumines the mind, the eyes, the luminaries and the entire world. The entire world is illumined by the luminaries. The luminaries are illumined by the eyes. The eyes are illumined by the mind. The mind is illumined by the consciousness, which is me, which is the self. So who is that ultimate light? That is the self. And here light, by light we don't mean physical light. It is the light of consciousness. Chaitanya Prakash, not Jada Prakash. Right? That consciousness is me. Okay. So in these three verses, what is Shankaracharya doing? Shankaracharya is trying to explain to us that self knows everything, but it is not known by anything. It knows the world, the mind, its functions and its absence. The self witnesses everything, sees everything, but nothing sees the self. The self illumines everything, but nothing illumines the self. The self pervades everything, nothing pervades the self. And the shine of all the objects, because of which those objects are known, actually comes from this consciousness, from this self. So in other words, following the light of consciousness, all other things shine. They exist. They are known. That light of consciousness is me. That is you. Chaitanya Swarupa. Chit Swarupa. Okay? Alright. Sufficient for today. Now, when we listen to this entire explanation, what is said, that the self sees everything, but nothing is seen by the self. Nothing sees the self. The self illumines everything, but nothing illumines the self. The self pervades everything. So it may appear to somebody that self is doing. Self is seeing, self is witnessing, self is pervading, self is illumining. Now, he clarifies, no. Yasya sannidhi matrena. That we will see in the next class. Okay, interesting. Some more interesting verses are there. We'll see. Sufficient for today. We'll conclude. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate ಓಂ ಶಾಂತಿ ಶಾಂತಿ ಶಾಂತಿ. ಹರಿ ಓಂ ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರುಭ್ಯೋ ನಮಃ. ಹರಿ ಓಂ.